Amplification. The primary function of the ossicles is to transmit sound vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. As the vibrations move from the larger surface area of the eardrum to the smaller area of the stapes footplate, they are amplified. This amplification is crucial for efficient hearing, as the sound waves need to be strong enough to create waves in the fluid of the cochlea. Impedance matching. The ossicles also play a role in impedance matching between the air in the external auditory canal and the fluid of the cochlea. Impedance matching ensures that most of the sound energy is transferred into the inner ear rather than being reflected and lost, which is important for the sensitive process of converting sound waves into neural signals. Protection. The ossicular chain has a protective mechanism against excessively loud sounds. The muscles attached to the malleus and stapes, the tensor tympani and stapedius muscles, respectively, can contract reflexively in response to loud sounds, reducing the transmission of sound energy to the inner ear and helping to protect it from damage. Inner ear. Inner ear consists of cochlea and vestibular system. Cochlea. The cochlea is an intricate and essential component of the inner ear, playing a critical role in the auditory system. It is responsible for converting mechanical sound vibrations into electrical signals that the brain can interpret as sound. Here's a more detailed look at its structure and function. Structure of the cochlea. Spiral shape. The cochlea is a spiral-shaped, coiled tube resembling a snail shell. It makes about 2.5 turns around a central bony pillar called the modiolus. Internal division. Inside, the cochlea is divided along its length by two membranes, the Reissner's membrane and the basilar membrane. This division creates three parallel, fluid-filled chambers or canals, the scala vestibuli, scala media, cochlear duct, and scala tympani. Scala vestibuli and scala tympani. These two chambers are filled with a fluid called perilymph, which is similar in composition to cerebrospinal fluid. The scala vestibuli begins near the oval window, where the stapes bone transmits sound vibrations into the cochlea. The scala tympani ends at the round window, another membrane-covered opening that allows for fluid displacement within the cochlea. Scala media or cochlear duct. The scala media contains a different fluid called endolymph, which is rich in potassium and crucial for the transduction process. It houses the organ of Corti, the sensory organ of hearing. Organ of Corti. Located on the basilar membrane, it contains rows of sensory hair cells and supporting cells. Above the hair cells is the tectorial membrane, which plays a role in the stimulation of these cells. Hair cells. There are two types of hair cells: inner hair cells, responsible for transmitting sound information to the brain, and outer hair cells, involved in amplifying and fine-tuning sound vibrations. The hair cells have tiny projections called stereocilia that protrude into the endolymph. Function of the cochlea. Sound wave transmission. Sound vibrations enter the cochlea via the oval window, causing movement in the perilymph of the scala vestibuli. Basilar membrane movement. These movements create a traveling wave along the basilar membrane, causing it to move up and down. Stimulation of hair cells. The movement of the basilar membrane causes the hair cells in the organ of Corti to bend against the tectorial membrane. This bending opens ion channels, leading to a change in the electrical potential of the hair cells, effectively converting mechanical energy into electrical signals. Auditory nerve stimulation. The electrical signals generated by the hair cells stimulate the auditory nerve fibers connected to them. These nerve fibers carry the auditory information to the brain, where it is interpreted as sound. Frequency mapping, tonotopy. Different frequencies of sound affect different parts of the cochlea. High-frequency sounds cause more movement at the base of the cochlea, while low-frequency sounds affect the apex. This tonotopic organization allows the brain to distinguish between different sound frequencies. Importance in hearing. The cochlea's ability to perform auditory transduction, converting sound waves into electrical signals, is fundamental to our sense of hearing. Damage or dysfunction in the cochlea can lead to hearing loss, underscoring its critical role in the auditory system. Vestibular system. The vestibular system is a complex sensory system that is crucial for normal movement and balance. Located in the inner ear, it works closely with other sensory systems, such as vision and proprioception, the sense of body position, to maintain the body's position and equilibrium. Here's a detailed look at its structure and function. Structure of the vestibular system. Semicircular canals. There are 3 semicircular canals, anterior, posterior, and lateral, in each ear, oriented at roughly right angles to each other. These canals are filled with a fluid called endolymph and contain a sensory organ called the crista ampullaris. The crista ampullaris has hair cells similar to those in the cochlea, and their movement in response to fluid motion is crucial for detecting rotational movements of the head. Otolith organs. These consist of the utricle and saccule, which are responsible for detecting linear acceleration and gravity. Inside these organs are small crystals called otoliths, calcium carbonate crystals, that sit on top of a gelatinous layer covering the hair cells. Movement of the head causes the otoliths to shift, which bends the hair cells and sends signals to the brain about the head's position relative to gravity and linear motion. Function of the vestibular system. Balance and equilibrium. The vestibular system provides critical information about motion, head position, and spatial orientation. It helps maintain balance and stabilize the eyes and body during movement. Detection of head movements. The semicircular canals detect rotational movements, like turning the head side to side, nodding, or tilting. Each canal is sensitive to movements in a different plane, covering a full range of head rotations. Detection of linear movements and gravity. The otolith organs, utricle and saccule, detect linear movements, such as forward-backward, up-down, and side-to-side motion, and the effects of gravity. They help in understanding the orientation of the head relative to the ground, aiding in balance and posture. Vestibuloocular reflex, VAR. This reflex stabilizes vision during head movements by producing eye movements in the opposite direction of head movement, allowing for clear vision while moving. Integration with other systems. The vestibular system works closely with the visual system and proprioceptive sensors in the body to maintain balance and spatial orientation. Information from the vestibular system is sent to the brainstem, cerebellum, and other areas of the brain to help coordinate movement and balance. Clinical importance. Disorders of the vestibular system can lead to symptoms like dizziness, vertigo, balance disturbances, and visual disturbances during movement. Vestibular function is often assessed in patients with dizziness or balance problems to determine the underlying cause.
Why do we have an appendix if we don't need it? For a long time, the appendix was considered a useless body part, something left over from evolution that no longer served a purpose in modern humans. Many people still believe that we don't need it at all, especially because people can live without it. But modern biology and anatomy tell a more interesting story. In this article, we'll explore what the appendix is, where it is in the body, what it may actually do, and why it might not be as useless as it seems, all explained in simple terms so that anyone, even someone new to biology, can understand. What is the appendix? The appendix is a small, tube-like structure that sticks out from the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. It's found in the lower right side of your abdomen. In medical terms, it is called the vermiform appendix, which means worm-shaped appendix because it looks like a small worm or finger. It is usually 3 to 5 inches long. Even though it's tiny and doesn't play a big role in digestion like the stomach or small intestine, its structure and position tell us a lot about its past and maybe even its purpose today. Why we have appendix? To understand why we have an appendix, we need to go back to our evolutionary history. Millions of years ago, our ancestors had very different diets. They ate lots of raw plants, leaves, and roots, which are hard to digest. Back then, their cecum and appendix were much larger and acted as a fermentation chamber. In this chamber, bacteria helped break down the tough fibers in plants. But as humans evolved, we started cooking food and eating more meat, fruits, and processed grains. These foods are easier to digest, so our digestive system didn't need such a big cecum anymore. Over time, the cecum shrank, and the appendix became smaller too. Because it became so small and seemed to serve no purpose, scientists thought the appendix was a vestigial organ, a leftover from evolution that no longer had a function. But now